Well, hello there. I just wanted to talk about some of the issues with the current COVID situation. Now, I guess the one of the things is what is considered a COVID death, and take a look at this short 2-minute video.
Earlier this week, the state reported the death of a teenager in Cook County. Are you familiar with this case? If so, is this the state's first teenage death? And can you tell us if the teenager in question had underlying conditions?
Okay, we're going to get a definition now of how you can determine whether or not someone died with COVID. Very simple.
I don't have that information at my disposal at this time. I know we have had people of all age groups die. I just want to be clear in terms of the definition of people dying.
Okay, here comes the definition of death by COVID.
Of COVID. So the case definition is very simplistic. It means at the time of death, it was a COVID positive diagnosis.
That means no matter how you die, as long as you were positive for COVID when you died, you are a COVID death. Even if you got in a car wreck or you fell off a cliff, for whatever reason that you died, as long as you had COVID, it's counted as a COVID death. Listen.
So that means that if you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death.
There it was. Okay. She's even going to make it more simple for us.
Means that if even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death.
So technically, even if you died of an alternate cause, if you had COVID when you died, it's called a COVID death. You wonder why the numbers are messed up.
So as you can see, there's a lot of different categories of death that would be considered a COVID death. So what I'm wondering is what's the grand total of deaths in the United States? That would be grand total or inclusive of the COVID deaths. All right, now this right here is called the Vaccine Liberation Army. I'm not really like a conspiracy person, and I believe vaccines are good. So I'm just going over this one to look at some of the data they have. And this is okay. This is weekly mortality statistics from the United States Center of Disease Control. And this is week 1 of 2019 and week 1 of 2020. Now, as you go down, this is grand total of deaths. And it says here, like, the grand total week 15, which I guess would be, April. It says that 55,477 deaths for the 15th week of 2019. Now, if we go over here, the 15th week of 2020, that's actually, I think, April, it says the grand total of deaths is 47,574. So that's a lot lower deaths. Now, this is grand total, all inclusive. This includes COVID. But you can see that less people are dying. And as you saw in the video, they said that COVID deaths are labeled with any death that occurs regardless if they were in an accident or if they had a heart attack. If they had COVID, then they would be labeled as a COVID death. But nonetheless, this is all the deaths. So actually the death rate is going down. Okay, now here's what we have here. This is the United States historical death rate data. Okay, now as you can see here, the death rate, now this is actually per 1,000 population, per 1,000 people. There are 8.782 deaths per overall deaths, all inclusive deaths, including COVID deaths. Well, there probably weren't any COVID deaths in 2019, but all inclusive deaths in 2019 is 8.782 per 1,000 people. Okay, we go to 2020. All inclusive deaths, all, including COVID or written as COVID death, all inclusive deaths, 8.88. So it's only slightly higher from 2019. And in 2018, it was lower, 8.685. And this is way before COVID. So you can see there's not a spike of deaths. This is all inclusive deaths. Now here's an article here. Partly false claim, overall U.S. death count remains stable. So this is all inclusive deaths are pretty much the same. Right here it says the U.S. is not losing tons more lives in 2020 compared to 2019. The increase is virtually non-existent. Now you would think that since there's a lot of focus on the COVID deaths, that the overall, all-inclusive amount of deaths in the United States would spike. But as you can see from the data, at least the data I have, if you want to put a comment or you got some links to some data that, now I know there's probably thousands of links on the net about how many COVID deaths, but now when you go with all inclusive and all, you know, the grand total of deaths in the US, you're not going to find too many links on that. But nonetheless, you know, that's the thing. It's kind of, it doesn't really, you would think that there's like this huge spike. And in some all-inclusive data of all-inclusive deaths in the United States, the death rate has actually gone down. So, food for thought. And if you want to make a comment and discuss this, that's fine. That's it for now.